AITAH for uninviting my brother and nephew for my celebration dinner because my nephew is autistic and my brother insisted on bringing him? Posted by you/newway888. Backstory: my sister and I, early 30s, have an older brother. He's on his second marriage. His first marriage gave me my nephew, Connor, 15M. Connor is autistic. When he was born, my, at the time, sister-in-law's family was the village. My parents were also the village. My sister and I refused to be part of the village. This resulted in many arguments until I told my parents they could either have my brother and his family and I would go no contact, or they could respect my boundaries and I'd still be around. They agreed. Eventually, my brother got a divorce because of marital problems, one of which was his ex-wife insisting that my sister and I step up and help. I felt bad for him, still do, but I wasn't going to change my stance. My sister didn't either. I have lived out of state for a bit and recently accepted a new job offer close to home. It came with a nice bonus, so I decided to invite my parents, sister, and brother out for dinner at my favorite Korean barbecue spot. My parents confirmed that it wasn't my brother's week with my nephew, so all was well and good. About a week before I got back home, my brother called and said his ex had something come up and that he had Connor the upcoming week, and his current wife was going to be out of town with her sisters. I said no worries and asked if he wanted to call his regular babysitter for Connor and I'd cover it for our dinner night. He said no, he wanted to bring Connor to the dinner and asked if we could change the venue because Connor gets overstimulated. I said no. This was my dinner, I'm paying for it, I'm going to my favorite place. He said, "You know your nephew really can't handle a place like that." I said yes, I know. That's why I'm offering to cover paying for a babysitter for that night. He argued that he'll just bring Connor with him. I said he's welcome to do that, but then I'm not going, so it'll just be him and our parents. He told me that was messed up, that if Connor gets overstimulated, he'll just take him and go outside until he calms down. I reminded him that the last time we went to a KBBQ place, Connor had a meltdown and they had to leave. My parents always feel bad for Connor, so they'll usually leave and go to my brother's house to help. I said I didn't want that happening. I wanted to have a nice dinner without having to worry about that. He told me to go FCK myself and hung up. We went to dinner, my sister, my parents, and I. My brother did not show up. It was a nice dinner. My parents enjoyed it too, but they said they wished my brother had come. I agreed. They then said they wished my nephew had come too. I did not agree. I said it would have likely resulted in my brother leaving after maybe 30 to 40 minutes of being there, and they would have followed him too. They agreed but said I should have let him come anyway and just deal with it. I said that sounds like a good reason for me not to do that, and we didn't talk much that night after that. Was I the jerk here? Top/relevant comments. Additional info from Op. I've babysat Connor before, even now, I will watch him for a few hours if my brother has to do something. I don't watch him all day or overnight, though. It's not his fault, and he is in no way a bad kid. However, I had to set boundaries because my parents and brother, mostly his ex-wife, would take a mile if you gave them an inch. They wanted my sister and me to stay local after high school so we could help with babysitting, and I was not about to do that. I did see both of them before I left, since I wanted to, but I did not apologize for wanting to eat at my favorite spot and have it done my way for just one night. Whenever my brother wants to have dinner, we basically go to the same local spot because it's quiet and doesn't upset my nephew, and it's his fixation when it comes to food. That's perfectly fine, and I go to those dinners, but for my dinner, I wanted it somewhere I enjoyed. Commenter. Not the jerk, can't believe they expected you and your sister to limit yourselves and stay near them to raise their child. That's some entitled crap. Op's response. I did sometimes feel bad, because my ex-sister-in-law's family really stepped up and helped, and my parents did too. But neither of us wanted to give up going somewhere else for school and life, just because my brother had a kid. That didn't seem fair to us, and I didn't want to put my life on hold for that. We're normally pretty good with each other, but it's only when stuff like this pops up that I get into it with my brother and parents. Update 1 day later. First, I wanted to thank everybody, positive or negative, for giving feedback. Whether it was good or bad, I did read every one of them, even the ones who called me a jerk. Totally valid. While I did see my brother and Connor before I left, it was more just playing with Connor and making small talk with my brother. I decided today to call my brother to try and get more info and smooth things out. We talked for about 5 minutes before I broached the subject. I told him I was sorry if it felt like I was being unnecessarily mean or exclusionary to Connor, but that I felt I had a right to decide how to celebrate the way I wanted to. He said he was sorry that he snapped the way he did, and looking back, he realized Connor would have had an awful time and it would have been a big waste of money for me. The place we went to was about $80 a person, $40 for Connor whether he ate or not. He just really wanted him to be there too. I told him going forward, for things like my birthday, I would be more than happy to have lunch as a family with Connor somewhere he likes so he can have a good time, then go to dinner somewhere I want to eat and I'd pay for a babysitter, or his mom, my brother's ex, could watch him. He asked if Connor would be welcome at the dinner too, and I said I didn't think so because I still planned to have KBBQ/hot pot/sushi/fine dining, and Connor doesn't do well in those environments, light/sound/smell/atmosphere. Which is why I brought up having lunch the day of or beforehand, so we can all celebrate and it be okay for him. But I was still standing firm that for my birthday, or something like another promotion, I wanted to go somewhere that I enjoyed without having to worry. I brought up that when he took us out to lunch, once a month before I moved, he picked, or my parents picked, and they always catered to Connor. I had no problems with that and attended almost all of them. This time, I wanted something for myself. He wasn't over the moon about it, but said it sounded good and thinks Connor would enjoy it too. He also looked into getting him sunglasses, as one of you suggested, for bright/overly stimulating environments. He then had a question for me, which I knew was going to be asked at some point. Now that I'm closer to home, he asked if I was going to be more involved as an uncle. I said yes, but not in the way he probably wants. I said I'd be more than happy to go over to his house and hang out with him, his wife, and Connor, and bring food Connor likes, as well as babysit once or twice a month so he and his wife could go see a movie or have dinner together. But I wasn't going to be an on-call babysitter like my parents are. Several times he's dropped Connor off at their house for a week or weekend with little notice because he and his wife wanted to go on a spontaneous vacation. I told him that was not going to happen with me, especially since I'm in the process of adopting a cat, and he and Connor are allergic. I wasn't allowed to have a cat while I lived in my parents' house, which was fine, it's their house, and it wasn't fair to my brother and Connor who were over super often. So him getting dropped at my new place is out of the question. He thankfully didn't press the topic and said it's okay, Mom and Dad don't mind, and that he missed hanging out with me and was happy that I could be around Connor more. So, everything worked out as well as I could have hoped. I'm excited to move back home in a few weeks, and thank you all again for the advice and criticism. Second update 7 months later. Hi. Me again. Was hoping I wouldn't have to post here again, but, well, life had other plans. I, 31M, moved back to LA from Texas for a new job. My parents live here, as do my brother, 40M, his wife, and my nephew Connor, 16M. Connor is autistic, and while he's made a lot of progress since he was 10, he still struggles with a lot of things. He is nonverbal, stims often, and frequently has meltdowns. My brother, his wife, his ex-wife, and my parents are the only ones really able to calm him down. I regularly watch him once or twice a month so my brother and his wife can go see a movie or hang out. I do not watch him overnight or for several days consecutively, and it's always at their house. After our argument last time, my brother and I have been on pretty good terms. He hasn't really pushed boundaries about babysitting, and we've mended our relationship quite a bit. However, something came up recently that has us on rocky terms. My brother recently got news that he was selected to attend a conference out of the country. The company is putting him up in a hotel for 10 days, and while they won't pay for his wife to go, they have no problem if he pays for her airfare and everything and she stays in the room with him. I'm very happy my brother got this opportunity. The issue is childcare. The conference happens to align with the week my parents and sister are going to NYC to celebrate my sister's birthday. Nothing is refundable, and my parents promised my sister over a year ago they'd do this. His ex-wife, Connor's biological mother, will also be out of town for work. So that leaves me. When he called me up to explain everything and ask, I told him no. However, I listed reasons why I wouldn't do it. 1. I live about 90 minutes away. Distance-wise, not that far, but LA traffic makes a lot of things more difficult than they should be. I don't mind making the drive once or twice a month when I'm watching him, but I do not want to make it 10 days in a row. Connor cannot come to my place because I have a cat and he is allergic, as well as me having things around the house that are fragile. I do not work from home, and Connor would still be in school, so I would likely have to take PTO to do it logistically. 2. The longest I've watched Connor was about 6 hours. He had a meltdown near the end that I was unable to calm him down from, and it was only my brother and his wife getting back 20 minutes later that saved me. I cannot picture myself doing it for 10 days straight. 3. This one might sound really selfish, but I don't want to set a precedent. If I watch him overnight even once, I know my brother and his wife would push it on me again. I don't want that to be a thing. I'm happy with our arrangement of me watching him once or twice a month and hanging out with him with my brother and our parents. That being said, I would not hesitate to watch him during an emergency. But that is a totally different story. I explained all this to him. He wasn't happy. He went off on me about how he thought me being back would mean he could rely on me for this. I have said before, I am not an on-call babysitter, and his wife would really like to go on this trip. I said I'm sorry, but I'm not doing this. I said I would be happy to go and help her on the weekend he's not there and hang out with Connor to give her a break, but I'm not going to risk my own mental health for 10 days and use 8 days of PTO to watch him for a non-emergency. He had a few choice words for me and hung up. He got my parents involved in the family group chat, and they surprisingly were on my side. They said it would be a really nice gesture if I did it, but reminded him that I've never watched Connor overnight and his wife doesn't have to go on this trip. He hasn't really talked to me since. I feel bad for his wife not being able to go, but I also don't trust myself to be able to handle Connor for 10 days. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Connor has 3 parents, your brother, his bio mom, and your brother's wife. They are the people who have primary responsibility to take care of Connor. That all 3 of them want to go off for 10 days at the same time and none of them want to stay with the kid makes them the jerks. It's their responsibility to ensure that one of them is there to look after their child. It's wild that after all these years of you saying no, your brother keeps pulling these stunts on you. You set your boundaries way back when you were in high school about not being a co-parent or an on-call babysitting service. What are they still not understanding about your consistent no? Ops response. His bio mom will only be gone 7 days, but it's also not during her custody time, and she let him know months in advance. I think he thought I'd flounder, and that maybe being around Connor more often would soften me up. He was sort of right. I do enjoy spending time with Connor more now than I did when I was younger, but I'm not willing to give up my freedom and personal goals to regularly be called upon to be a babysitter. I quite like my arrangement. Commenter 2. Is it possible for your brother to take Connor with him? Ops response. Taking him isn't an option. His bio mom will not allow him out of the country, per their custody rules, and the last time he went on a 45-minute plane ride to San Fran, my brother described it as the longest 45 minutes of his life. I cannot imagine what a 10+ hour plane ride would be like. Commenter 3. Well, someone between your brother and his ex-wife has to figure out the child care plan for their son. Ops response. I agree. If I had to guess, his wife is going to stay home. He's going on the trip, and his ex is going on hers, so that leaves his wife to stay home. Which she obviously doesn't want to do, but it's not going to be me. Third update 6 days later. First, thank you to everyone who provided advice. I really appreciate it, and it helped to know that I wasn't out of line. I messaged my brother. I said he had 2 options, either he and or his wife stay home and watch Connor, or he works with local agencies or care facilities, I apologize if I'm not using the right terms, to get respite care for the duration of their trip, and I would check on him over the weekend. I made it clear that I would not be watching him, and I was not open to further discussion on that point. He called me, and his wife got on the line. She said I know how she feels about other people watching Connor overnight, and how her mother feels too, and that she's never been to this destination before, it's on her bucket list. I said I understood, and in that case, I assumed she'd be staying home with Connor, and maybe she and my brother could take him there together in the future. My brother tried to interject, but I cut him off. I told him I really didn't care what he had to argue, I wasn't here for it. As some of you suggested, I again pointed them toward local organizations and government resources dedicated to helping parents with special needs children, but didn't get anywhere. I was really burnt out over everything, so I said good luck with the situation and hung up. I then made a group chat with him and his wife and told them that, going forward, I would be visiting once or twice a month, meaning one of them needs to be present while I'm there. I'm not watching Connor alone anymore. I feel like this is a fair compromise, allowing me to still spend time with Connor while not taking on a caregiver role. I told them that maybe, in the future, we could work back toward what we had before, but not anytime soon. They both responded with long messages, saying they were sorry but had no other options, and that they thought maybe I'd do it for them. They said this trip could have been like a second honeymoon and asked me to please keep watching Connor for a day or 2 each month, offering to pay me for it. I told them no amount of payment is worth it. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to Connor. He is not my child, he is theirs. I told them they need to start working with agencies now and get Connor used to outside care and new caregivers, because our parents are getting older, and they won't always be an option. My brother responded that he and his wife would start the process and get his ex involved too, but asked, what are we going to do if that doesn't work? I told him that it's on them. I'd be happy to help research programs and benefits with them, but if they have any thought that I'm going to take over the role our parents currently have, they're out of their minds. His wife asked if I would consider getting trained to care for Connor the way they do, and I shut that down. I said I'm happy to be the fun uncle who drops by to hang out, but I value my independence and I'm not going to compromise that. Eventually, they both just gave me thumbs up emojis. His wife said she would stay home with Connor and not go on the trip, and that they'd see me in 2 weeks to hang out. We'll see what happens then, but at the very least, I'm not on the hook for watching him, and someone who can calm him will be with him. I'll continue encouraging them to expand their support circle and explore more resources and programs for Connor. I think doing so would greatly improve the quality of life for all of them, and help prevent situations like this from happening again. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. The math here is so important, though. Connor is 16, and Op is 31. That means he was 15 when Connor was born, and both Op and his sister had to actively refuse to be part of the village, including sacrificing their futures to stay local to care for the kid. Reading between the lines, it sounds like the brother and his ex tried very hard to parentify the younger siblings, which is part of why Op is so firm on his boundaries now. Commenter 2. I don't think this is over. I believe they think they can eventually wear you down. I think you need to be prepared to call the police if your brother and his wife manage, at some point, to take off and leave you alone with your nephew. And if they continue to push this with you, I think you need to let them know that if the above scenario occurs, you will be calling the police for abandonment. Op's response. I've made it somewhat clear that if they keep this up, I'll join my sister in going basically low contact / no contact. I'd feel bad not talking to my brother or seeing Connor, but it really wouldn't be worth it if they keep trying this. Commenter 3. Has your brother and his family made any plans for your nephew's long-term care? What happens as they age, or die, and can no longer care for him? Op's response. They are working on that, but they're still in the we can handle him stage, despite situations like this clearly showing they can't. Op responding to a commenter telling him to be more compassionate toward his brother's family. I respect your opinion and think you're doing a fantastic job on your end, but I have no plans to be trained in how to care for him or be part of the village. That is why I left for college years ago. I could have stayed home and gone to the local college and saved a lot of money, but I was told, not asked, that when Connor was born, I would be part of the village and had to learn to deal with it. That is why I left for the better part of a decade and have only recently gotten back from low contact / no contact with my family, except for my sister. Fourth update 3 weeks later. Once again, thank you for all the comments and advice. They are all greatly appreciated. I went to hang out with my brother, sister-in-law. I realized it was strange to call her my brother's wife the whole time, and Connor over at their house. My brother ordered pizza and he played with Connor while my sister-in-law and I hung out in the living room. My sister-in-law, surprisingly, apologized. She said she was very sorry for the way she was acting. She told me how, coming from the Midwest and her family, she's an only child, she was very used to seeing aunts and uncles take her and her cousins for a few days or weeks when parents had to do something. That they'd do sleepovers and the like, and always had parties at a different relative's house pretty regularly. She thought that based on her friends and how their families did roughly the same thing, that it was very commonplace. She did not expect me or my sister to rebuff that kind of relationship and be so against it. She said she understands now she was trying to force what she thought was normal, and she'll do her best to respect my wishes going forward. I thanked her for that. My brother came in with Connor, and while Connor was playing close by, my brother said he and my sister-in-law planned to go to therapy to come to terms with Connor getting older and to start planning for the future. He said it was stupid to think our parents would be around forever, much as we both wish that. He's hoping in a few months they, my sister-in-law and Connor's bio mom, will be comfortable enough to start leaving him overnight at respite care and with individuals trained to handle kids like Connor. My sister-in-law joked that she hoped that in a few years, maybe they could all go to the destination my brother was going to. I was happy to hear that. I told them I am really happy they are moving forward, but I also wanted to lay out some things I want them to know. I'd be happy to go with them to check out care facilities and assisted living, I believe that is the term, facilities that Connor may go to when the inevitable happens. I'd be happy to, if something horrendous happens, make sure that their assets and savings are used to take care of Connor and his needs. I'd visit Connor at said facilities when he's there. I would not take on any kind of caretaker role now or ever. That is not something I want to do. If they ever try what they tried recently or attempted to broach the subject again, I would go low contact / no contact. I said this more politely than I wrote it, but that was the gist of it. I will accept being called a jerk for this, but I took some of your advice and spelled it out for them in case they weren't getting the message. I would never let Connor end up on the street, but I also would not let him live with me and I would never be his guardian / adopt him. I would make sure he is with people who can handle and care for him the right way. Both of them took it pretty well, and were happy to know that I would make sure that I'd execute their wills correctly if it came down to it. My brother apologized again about the last argument. I told him I accepted his apology, but, politely, to never ask me to do that again. I reminded him that his dream was to be a dad and have a family. My dream was to travel the world. I am going to start doing that soon, probably week-long trips at most, but I wasn't going to ever sacrifice my happiness and youth to be a caretaker. I love Connor, but he's my nephew, not my child. And that I love him, my brother, too, but there are certain things I draw the line at. We hugged it out and had a good rest of the night. So that's that. I am really hoping that they keep to their word. I am so emotionally drained from all this that I honestly don't think I could stand another situation like what happened prior. But here's to baby steps and small victories. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. The sister-in-law comparing hanging out with aunts and uncles sometimes when she was a kid to having someone take care of her extremely high-needs kid was hilarious to me. Commenter 2. Sometimes caring for people means doing what is best and not what feels best. I'm glad this lesson made its way to the parents in the end.